Well, thank you very much, and thank you for allowing me to come here and talk to you. I am a program director for neurosurgery. It's the largest AOA neurosurgery program in the country. I'm also the DIO of Western University. Previously, I was the DME of Arrowhead Regional Medical Center, our flagship on the West Coast. And I'm going to talk to you about the do's and don'ts, what to do for an audition rotation. The first thing I want to do is the basics, okay? It's really, really simple. And usually I walk around and usually I have a lapel mic and I'll just kind of try to stay right here. But what do you think is the basic thing you have to do? It's really, really simple. Any ideas? Show up, yeah. And how do you show up? You show up on time, right? You show up on time. You dress the right way, okay? You participate. Those are all just the really basic things to do. But not everybody does it, and I'm not kidding about that. We have people that come on rotation, whether it's neurosurgery or general surgery or internal medicine, all of our programs. They don't shave, they're wearing sneakers, their hair is all a mess, and they don't tuck in their scrubs, and it's not always appropriate to wear scrubs, right? Especially if you're in clinic, right? You want to dress like you are dressed right now. Why would you dress any differently if you're going on and doing clinics and walk in there and it's not a good thing because we're supposed to be professionals, right? We're supposed to be professionals for our entire career. You guys are learning about your core competencies. There's 7 core competencies. Can anybody name your core competencies? Okay, good. That's usually how it goes. There's 7 core competencies that you have to know about. You have to know about when you're a medical student. You have to know when you're a resident. That's what we get our CME in, is continuing medical education. That's what we get our CME in, is our core competencies. So it's not just about medical knowledge and patient care. It's about OMM, OPP. That's one of our 7 core competencies. But it's also about communication, professionalism, practice-based learning, and systems-based practice. So you have to do that throughout your entire career. And this is the time where you need to show off, is when you do that type of rotation. So that's the basics. That's the basics. All right. So you're going to go into a program. You're going to do, this talk is about the audition rotation, where you want to make the best impression about what's going on. So if you're going to do that, learn about the program. Learn about the requirements for the program. Because every program is a little bit different, but there are some things that are common to all programs. They have to have some kind of minimums for your board exams. Okay, our AOA programs look at COMLEX. We don't look at USMLE. It's out there that the ACGME programs, 85% will look at COMLEX. But you know, there's an exit sign way back there on that wall over there, and I could kind of see that exit sign, and they could kind of see the COMLEX. But that doesn't mean they mean anything to them. They still have to take the USMLE. If you ask the question of those ACGME programs, how many people will only use COMLEX? It's not 85%. It's far less than that. I don't know the number off the top of my head. That survey wasn't done. But it's unusual for them to just use a COMLEX. But our programs, of course, use COMLEX. So there's a score you have to get. It used to be a 2-digit score. It's no longer a 2-digit score. It's a 3-digit score. And it's also that ranking of where you did on that. So find out what the program requires before you get there. Maybe it's 8%, maybe it's a 75%, maybe it's a 90% that they look at. Programs are different, whether you're going into surgery or family practice or emergency medicine. Emergency medicine, right, those types of people, they want to get really, really high board scores and really, really high grades, because what's required in the emergency room is very, very different than what's required as a neurosurgeon or a family practice doctor. There was a study that was done that looked at the amount of malpractice claims that were made based on their board scores or based on their grades, and how they did at treating somebody with CPR. And it was really found out in the emergency medicine programs that if you get a high score on your boards, a high score on your grades, you do wonderful for doing CPR and those algorithm types of things. But in the other specialties, you have the highest amount of lawsuits because you're really, really smart, but you can't relate to patients. And so they also found out that those people that had the medium scores, they had far less lawsuits. They weren't cut out just for the emergency room, but they were cut out for everything else where you have to interact with the patients and follow up with them. So find out what the program requires, because it's different from every single program. In the surgery and the surgical subspecialties, and you're all interested in that, that's why you're in SOSA, and that's why you're here right now, I hope, that we look for the board scores, we look for the grades. And the grades. How could we tell what your grades are, right? Half of you have A's and B's, half of you have numbers, half of you don't even have that, you have pass and fail. You know, there's 3 halves right there. There's half of you have pass and fails, and we don't even know what pass and fails are because sometimes it's got a little asterisk there. And that asterisk really isn't explained too often. So as you're just looking through all the applicants, and you have hundreds and hundreds of applicants, you're going through everything, P, B, 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 F, 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 I don't know. There's hardly any F's, but anyway. If you have the half of that, we don't know if you failed or not. So sometimes it's listed by quartile of your class. So basically the bottom line for grades is we have no idea what that means, what your grades are, okay? So what do we look for? We look for fails. That's the only thing we could really count on. And if you have a fail, maybe some programs don't take you. Maybe some programs give you minus points. Now, if you're looking at all these things based on 100 points, there's some points you get for boards, there's some points you get for grades. But there's other points that are more important. And those other points that are more important are for certain surgical surgeries and surgical subspecialties is, did you publish in the field? Did you publish or did you give a presentation? So for neurosurgery, we like to see some kind of presentation at a national level, like at this meeting right here. A poster or a talk, if that's a possibility. We like to see that. And for neurosurgery, we like to see it in neurosciences. So neurology counts. We're surgical neurologists, right? So we like to see it in there. So that counts. That's 5 points too. But you know what makes a really big difference is the audition rotation. The audition rotation. Coming with us and spending time with us. Do we ever take somebody that didn't come with us? Yes. We'll sometimes take somebody that didn't come with us. But it's not that often that happens. And then when you come to us and the audition rotation, and you got to do those basic things, get a letter of recommendation from the person that you rotated with. Because for us, that counts as another 5 to 10 points as well. So just doing the rotation with us counts as 10 points. Getting another letter of recommendation is another 10 points. Okay? But it's a double-edged sword, right? So if you come with us and you don't do good, the chance of you getting in is 0. So really it is. If you get a letter of recommendation and it's a bad letter of recommendation, the chance of getting in is 0 as well. Okay? So you want to put your best foot forward. There are certain things, do's and don'ts of what you want to do when you come out and do the rotation. So then in addition to those points, there's also the interview. And what do people look at for the interview? Well, we already have your grades. We already have your board scores. We already know if you published something or not. We know if you did a rotation maybe in those things that I'm going to talk to you about in a little bit. But the interview is really important. It's about how you present yourself, the do's and don'ts that we're going to talk about. How you present yourself, how you communicate, how you answer questions. Let me just look around the room and see who is here, because I want to tell you a story about what happened a year or two ago. Somebody came out and interviewed and said, this person said that on the rotation that he did prior to our rotation, on the rotation, he went there, and when he was discussing cases, the residents didn't really know what they were talking about. And he told the residents that they didn't know what they were talking about. And he said, well, usually I'm right about things, and this is what he's telling me during the interview. I was like, okay, I already made my decision about you. I'm not raking you at all, right? And he said, usually I'm right about things, and I don't see why the residents were arguing with me about these things. And I was like, holy cow. You're a medical student and you're arguing with, I said, what year were these residents? He said 5th and 6th years. I said, Oh, okay. Well, what kind of point did you have? And he goes on to tell me, and it's like, you don't know what you're talking about at all. That is not the right thing to do during an interview. That is not the right thing to do during a audition rotation. No, not at all. Those are bad things, right? Those are the don'ts of what's going on. And it does happen, all right? It is terribly unfortunate, but residency programs are like the military, right? And there's a ranking that goes on. And if you talk out of your ranking, you get put in the stockade, right? Now, there's absolutely ways of doing it. Be humble. You can do that. Ask questions. Don't accuse a senior resident, say, that's not how it goes. That's not what you're supposed to answer. You don't know what you're talking about. You're not going to get into the program. And it seems like this might be a joke or something, but it does happen, and it happens frequently. It does happen frequently. So find out the requirements when you go to that program, all right? Because different programs have different types of, okay? Show up on time, dressed appropriately. There's usually an orientation for those types of rotations. Go to the orientation. Don't show up on rounds and you don't have your badge, you don't have access to anything, can't get into the operating room. Don't show up like that and say, well, I didn't do the orientation. You might think that orientation is beneath you. It is not. When you become a resident, you have to do an orientation. When you become an attending, you have to do an orientation. This is forever. None of this is because we think that you can't handle it. It's for patient safety. It's for about learning what's going on. It's for about knowing where you're supposed to be. So did you guys see about show up on time, right? So you guys already lost that. So don't come to Arrowhead. Anyway, so learn about orientation and what it takes, and show up to it. Don't blow it off, and you know what else? Who else you don't blow off? The residency coordinator, or the student coordinator, because they're the ones who usually do the orientation. Oh, I didn't have to go to that. Seriously, people have said that. Well, it was just the secretary who was presenting it. The secretary is our support system. The secretary is the one who keeps us on time. The secretary tells us where we're supposed to go 1 second to the next because of our schedules. If the secretary doesn't like you, you're not getting in. It doesn't matter if the program director or the faculty love you. That secretary, that residency coordinator, is not a secretary. It's our assistant. It's our person who keeps our lives all together and has more influence than almost anybody. So don't upset the residency coordinator. Don't upset the student coordinator. And some of you have already upset Mary Helen at our institution. So what do you do? What do you do before you get there? Okay, and I'm going to talk about the audition rotation. I will get to it eventually. So what do you do before you get there? Well, whatever you're going to go into, there really is a textbook that's particular to your specialty that you're going to go into. And there really is a handbook particular to what specialty you're going to go to. Know the basics before you go to get there. So at our institution, one of your medical schools, I won't name it, which one, they came and rotate in our general surgery program, and they didn't know the basics of appendectomies and hernia operations before they got there. They did very, very good in the second week, the third week, and the fourth week. They actually excelled and did the best of any of the programs, even the big names that we get, Harvard and Yale, and those people that rotate with us too. They did much better than that. So you guys have a great deal of ability to learn and excel in all these programs, even above what you might think are high-powered programs. They're not. They have nothing above you. They will never have anything above you. But what they did do is they did read before they got to their rotation and know the basic types of things that you're going to ask, are going to be asked, or basic things you're going to be doing. So, an example, I'm a neurosurgeon, right? I'm going to give you a neurosurgical example. Before you get there, there's different textbooks. There's Yeoman's, there's Wilkins, there's all different types of textbook. And make sure you have that textbook available. Either bring it with you on a plane, you know, it's really heavy. One's 4 volumes, and one was 7 volumes, and so it could be pretty hard. Or at least have access to your Blackboard, your medical school's library information system where you could look at those types of things. So that's the textbook you want to be able to look at in depth, because you don't always get everything out of the handbook. And on neurosurgery, we have a handbook. It's called Greenberg. And you want to make sure that every time you see a patient, every single time you see a patient, it's a handbook. It has less than a page about each subject, each patient that you're going to see. After you see every single patient, look in the handbook about that patient, about that condition, so that when you can go, maybe you'll present it to the attending, maybe you'll present it to the resident. You could look intelligent when you do that, okay? And then what do you do at night? You read in your textbook about what happened, not the handbook, okay? And in neurosurgery, we have, like I said, we have Greenberg, and we also have our own handbook. The editor, Siddiqui, and I wrote 25 of 29 chapters. So look at that. It's called Neurocritical Care, and we expect you to be familiar with it, okay? If the program has written a book, make sure you know about that book that the program has written, okay? We had, when it came out, it was the #1 neuroscience book out of FEMA, okay? So know about that type of book. In addition to that, books are kind of old. Books really aren't peer-reviewed, even though it has to go through a long process. So what does that mean? That means look at journal articles too. Journal articles are peer-reviewed, but you know, some of them don't make any sense at all. For example, on hypothermia, low temperature and severe head injury patients, a great article was put out in the late 1990s, 1998 or something like that, in the New England Journal of Medicine, and it said hypothermia for severe head injury is the greatest thing since sliced bread. Everybody should be doing it. 2001, the New England Journal of Medicine came out and said hypothermia, don't use it at all. Okay? So just because it's in a publication, a peer-reviewed publication, like, you know, that little rag, New England Journal of Medicine. No, New England Journal of Medicine is a great thing, right? Y'all heard of New England Journal of Medicine, I hope? Okay, good. And so it's a great journal. But even that's an example of how peer-review articles do change. And it's not always the best thing. Textbooks, oh my goodness, textbooks, they have all the articles written about the subject, and sometimes, especially like Yeoman's, you get to the end of the chapter and it's like, what does this mean? What did it actually say? It told me everything I wanted to know about it, but I don't know what kind of decision to make on that. That's why you have to look at all those different things. Periodicals. Make sure your medical school has access to those. If you're going to go into neurosurgery, general surgery, critical care, whatever kind of surgical subspecialty you're going to go into, have access to that, because you can't bring all those things with you when you go to a rotation. Your suitcase will just be 100 pounds of books, okay? Yeah, you could get on your iPad probably or something like that, but not always. They're not always available. So have access to that from your medical school. Read before you get there. Have the handbook with you. Have that handbook in your pocket all the time. So when someone comes on our service and I ask them, where's your handbook? Where's your handbook? And they don't have it. It's like, oh, okay, you're prepared. Not that you weren't prepared. Sorry. So look at the main textbook, the handbook, the faculty have any, and talk about what you need to do in order to get into and perform the best at your audition rotation. Now the example I'm going to give is for neurosurgery, okay? But this is for any type of surgery, surgical subspecialty. Now, first of all, neurosurgery is broken down into we're surgical neurologists. What do? We take care of backs and brains. We're intensivists. Okay, so if we're intensivists, we have to know about pulmonary critical care, cardiology. We take care of headaches and back pain. So we have to know about primary care as well. So when you talk about neurosurgery, we have to know the whole gamut. That's why it's 7 years. That's why it's the longest residency program. We have to know about everything. The only reason I'm saying this is because you have to think about what the surgery that you're going into is broken down into in order to understand this example. Okay, so neurosurgeons, that's what neurosurgeons does. Now you're gonna perform. You're gonna be on stage for your 4th year. So when do you want to do it? Well, we're real busy and we tend to forget, okay? And the closer you are to when we're deciding who's going to get in their match, the better it is. So the best time to come is in October and November. We put our match list in January, okay? But December, there's a lot of holidays. Half of us aren't there for the last 2 weeks. So if half of us aren't going to be there and you're going to have to perform and get the vote of the most people, December is not necessarily the best time to do it. So October and November is about the best time to do it. Can you do it in July, August, September? Absolutely, 100%. But then we kind of forget your faces. And the new eras, when you're the first application, we don't even see your faces. Your photograph's not on there. And it's like, who the heck is this person? We've had 10 people every week rotate. Well, we don't have that many, but other services, 10 people every week rotate with you. How the heck are we supposed to remember all of that? So the closer you get to the match, the better it is. Okay, so you're going to perform on stage, read all those different things, show up on time, look good, look clean, don't disappear, don't argue with people. You're going to do that during that October and November of your 4th year. So if you're going to perform in neurosurgery, what's neurosurgery made of? Well, in your 3rd year, all right, you got to make sure you learn the neuro exam. And for cardiothoracic surgery, for ophthalmology, it's all the same thing. Just break it down into the individual components. So you want to do the best neurological exam. So you need to do in your 3rd year. You don't have a lot of time in your 4th year. All you have is July, August, and September, right? Because you're going to be here in October and November. In your 3rd year, you want to do neurology to learn the neurological exam. We're surgical neurologists. We really are surgical neurologists. When neurology isn't available or they don't like what neurology says, even though it has nothing to do with surgery, who do they call? They call the neurosurgeons, because of our surgical neurology. So you have to be really, really good with the nervous system. We're neuroscientists. And you have to know the neurological exam. So get that neurological exam down. If it's cardiothoracic surgery, get the cardiac exam down. So you learn that during your 3rd year. Okay, what else do? We do headaches and low back pain. Okay? So having experience in family medicine where these people come in with headaches and low back pain to help rule out some of these things during your 3rd year, that's important as well. Okay? And then we're a critical care specialist. So do a rotation in critical care. Learn what you have to do to take care of the ICU patient. Okay? And that's cardiology, pulmonary, all those different things, fluid management. It's so important, fluid management in the neurosurgical patients. We have to know exactly how much fluid, because the broken blood-brain barrier, all the fluids go through the broken blood-brain barrier and the brain swells and you die. We make a tiny little mistake, someone dies. So you have to learn critical care medicine. So take it during maybe the end of your 3rd year, maybe the beginning of your 4th year. It's really, really important for what we do. It's half of our practice. Most of our patients, because we can't save anybody, we just make vegetables out of everybody. So they all go to the ICU. So you got to learn how to take care of them. No, we don't make vegetables of people, but anyway. So learn how to take care of critical care medicine in the end of your 3rd year or your 4th year. Well, what else are we? We're surgeons. We're surgeons. So you have to have done a surgical rotation and been good at your surgical rotation. You should learn to tie knots before you get there. You should practice on bananas. It's really easy on bananas. Okay? And tie knots on bananas. But it's not just about tying knots. It's about learning the philosophy of what a surgeon is. Learning about wound care. Because being a surgeon, no matter what kind of surgeon you are, is not about just being in the operating room. Yeah, it's a part of it. There's no doubt about it. But picking the right patient beforehand, okay, and taking care of the patient afterwards, that's what makes success. Okay? You could do the best surgery in the world, but if you have a small complication not related to surgery in the ICU afterwards and somebody doesn't recognize it, seriously, you give the wrong amount of fluids. You give half normal saline. Some people give D5W, not any neurosurgeon though. You give half normal saline or D5W, and that's being done by a critical care specialist. The brain swells and they die. Maybe they don't die. Maybe they just become vegetative. That's worse than death. Okay? So you have to understand those things, and that's your general surgery rotation. So you do general surgery beforehand. You probably do 2 or 3 or 4 rotations in general surgery. Make sure you get that done and you're comfortable with the general surgery principles before you do your neurosurgical rotation. So you do critical care, you do neurology, you do general surgery, you do family practice, internal medicine. Internal medicine is really, really important for what we do. Taking care of the kidneys and all those fluids and everything and the nutrition about what's going on. You have to understand that. Understand that before you can really understand neurosurgery. And once again, it's not about neurosurgery. It's about whatever subspecialty you go into. Okay? And learn about internal medicine and be good with internal medicine and critical care medicine before you get to it. Okay, so then you're kind of getting closer to your 4th year now. It's a lot to put in before you do the neurosurgery rotation, before you're able to perform for your 4th year in October and November. Okay, and then there's neurosurgery programs, many neurosurgery programs. So what's the neurosurgery program you don't want to go into? I would never go into that program. You do a rotation there. Seriously. Why do you do a rotation there? And you do it probably in the beginning of your 4th year, because some of you guys can't do it during your 3rd year. It's not allowed. If you can do it near the end of your 3rd year, after you do all those other things, that's very good too. Okay? So you do that rotation, you never want to go there. That's fantastic. So if you make a mistake, it's no big deal, right? Because you never wanted to go there. But you're going to learn about neurosurgery. You're going to learn about what the lifestyle is about a neurosurgeon, and maybe you guys don't want to go into that. That's perfectly fine. It's not fit for everybody, okay? You want to learn about what it involves in the neurosurgery and the lifestyle. You want to make all your mistakes on that rotation. You want to get good feedback. You really want to have feedback from those chief residents, from the faculty, maybe the program director if they ever see you. Okay? You want to get that type of information, that feedback, and learn what you did wrong, what you did right, expand on the things you did right, try to cut back on the things that you did wrong. And the reason you do that is so that when you do that audition rotation, when you perform during your 4th year, that you actually are at your best. You have that foundation. You have all those other rotations that you went into, and you learn the basis of neurosurgery. And you learn from a previous neurosurgical rotation what are good things and bad things, so that you can perform the best. It's hard to perform if you don't know everything you're supposed to do, right? But this gives you the best foundation for your audition rotation. And the same thing is, no matter if you're going to do this for neurosurgery or cardiothoracic surgery, ophthalmology, orthopedics, any of those subspecialty surgeries. So that need to be a team evaluate the obstacles, and then eventually you're going to be on the interview. Okay, so questions. Yes, ma'am.
What would you say is the best way to find out
Yeah, good, excellent question. The best way is call them, okay? I know you guys like text like all the time and email. So on my phone, how many unanswered emails do I have? I have 5,523. I'm just not going to look at it. I'm just telling you right now, okay? So call, the residency coordinator usually doesn't know. Call and talk to the junior resident. The junior resident. The chief resident, they're way beyond those kinds of things. Ask the junior resident, what do you read? What are you supposed to read? We all have training manuals, and it actually lists in the training manual what they're supposed to read. Some of the residents don't know that. But ask the resident what they read. What's the best thing? What's your textbook that you think? Because they just started. They're scared to death, right? This is their first year. They wanted to have read everything because they know they'll be out soon if they don't, right? And they want to be able to carry their handbook around because actually the second years know this too. Because after your first year, we don't let first years really do too much because seriously, they kill people. They really seriously kill people. So we don't let our first years write orders in the ICU until maybe December of their first year, maybe. But the second years, they really kill people. They really, really kill people. Okay, that's why you got to know all this other stuff ahead of time. So ask the second years what's the handbook they use, because they are now responsible, in charge of patients, okay? And they'll know what to do because they've been scared out of their minds the first year. And so talk to them. The first years for neurosurgery still, they do 5 months of neurosurgery, they do 3 months of general surgery, they do critical care, they do a bunch of other things. So talk to those second years. And that's how you find out which is the one preferred. And that's the one you should always know about because that's the one that shows that you're ready for the program and gets the same information because nobody agrees to anything anyway. So, okay, good question. Other questions? Yes, ma'am. I don't know what you're talking about. What standards? What are you talking about? So that's the orientation part, right? That's the orientation part when you come in, and that's why I said it's so important to go to orientation. They will explain everything to you. If you miss orientation, and that's a great question, and that's a perfect example. If you miss orientation or you don't pay attention during orientation, and you start going into electronic medical record, and sometimes really the residents will allow you to do almost anything, right? You say, oh, could I have your access number? And you go into the medical records and you start doing orders and notes and everything. Usually I say don't do that. I don't yell at you. I just say don't do that anymore. Other people will just yell and scream at you. How could you ever do that? Some hospitals will kick you out right away and not let you ever come back to that hospital on any rotation. It's really, really, really important to find out in orientation what you are allowed and not allowed to do. And don't violate that. I mean, it's so important. This whole thing with EMRs and HIPAA, we have people thrown out of our institution all the time, okay? Go to that orientation. They will tell you what you're supposed to do and not do. Don't just ask the residents. The residents truly, they're overworked. They're dropping. They don't sleep. Their lives are totally messed up. They're going to have you do whatever it can to make their life easier. Don't go get them coffee. Don't go get them lunch. Because if I find out about that, not only, I'm not going to yell at you, I'm going to yell at them, and of course they won't like that, and then they'll be mad at you, right? So don't do things like that, okay? Go to orientation. It's so important because it's so easy to be kicked out of a hospital nowadays. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am. I already said that, but okay. So the interview is a big part of what's going on. It's actually 50 points out of the 100-point system. And what we look for is teamwork and communication. Okay, so we have specific examples. We say, and you know, all the programs pretty much have the same thing. You got into tell me about a time where you had a disagreement with a colleague or a professor. How did you resolve that disagreement? Okay, so we're looking for the ability to communicate, teamwork, problem solving. Another thing that we ask is when you go into neurosurgery, you're going to be overwhelmed with material. Have you ever had a situation in your life where you've been overwhelmed with material, given more than you could handle? How did you deal with that? What were the steps? Okay, seriously, those are the things. Those are the things that you're going to be asked in every single interview. It's all about teamwork. It's all about organization. It's all about how you relate to someone and overcame it. And if you said that, well, I just didn't deal with that person anymore, that's it. You're done. You're not going to get in. It's 50% of the whole admission process is that interview and how you interact and relate and communicate. And if you can't do that, the chance of you getting picked number one is 0. The chance of you being ranked is low. So the interview counts an awful lot. It's about communication and interacting and getting along with people. Teamwork. Teamwork is really, really important. There was a question over here, somebody. Yes, sir.
What kind of qualities do you think make a successful and resilient resident in your program and other surgical programs?
Teamwork, of course. Teamwork. Organization, of course. Learning how to read. Read all the time. I read all the time. Every single surgery that I go into, I read beforehand. It never stops. It truly is lifelong learning. None of these things that you are hearing in medical school is like, nobody does that. Yeah, really. If you're successful, everybody does that. And what I said at the very beginning, I wasn't kidding. Your core competencies. Know your core competencies, excel in your core competencies. And really, know your core competencies, what they are. Okay, really know what they are, all right? And that's what makes you a good surgeon. Because what I said at the very beginning, you're going to learn core competencies in medical school, you're going to learn them in residency, you learn them as an attending. Our CMEs, continuing medical education, is about core competencies. That's why they're called core. They're supposed to be in us all the time. And that's what we have to excel in. Medical knowledge, patient care, communication, professionalism, practice-based learning, systems-based practice, OMM, okay? OMM is a big deal. That's what sets you aside from everybody else. To integrate the neuromuscular skeletal system, to be compassionate, caring physicians, to be empathetic, to communicate with people. This communication and teamwork, I'm not just blowing smoke, okay? It truly is what's going to make you successful. I talked to you guys about that at the very beginning, about doing good on your boards and doing good with your grades. But your emotional intelligence is just as, if not more important than your IQ. Okay? You have to be able to work as a team and relate with people. Otherwise, you're not going to be the best doctors. When I was the DME, one of my traditional residents went into emergency medicine. He got over an 800 on his Comlex. Did you know it goes above 800? I didn't know. I thought it was a lie. So I called Comlex. I said, I have the score of what his score was. And they said, oh, you're talking about... And I said, yes, absolutely. How did you know that? We've never had a score like that before. And he finished, but he had a huge problem with relating to people. So my entire first year, he was in my office more than anything else because I had to teach him how to interact with people. But they don't know that. I said, yeah, but you still have to work with them. You can't tell them to their face you're an idiot. You have to work with them. You have to be able to bring out the best in them. Okay? I'm done. Okay, sorry. Is somebody else coming up here?
We have a residency panel at 11.
Oh, okay. All right. Oh, we got a minute and a half. Minute and a half for questions. All right. Any other questions? No? All right. Well, thank you very much. If you have any questions, just give me a call. Bye.